Daniel Thorne, a name previously known only within the confines of a modest apartment in the suburbs of what was, until a few hours ago, his entirely ordinary life, stared blankly at the holographic projection shimmering above his kitchen table. The alien script danced with an ethereal glow, utterly incomprehensible, yet its meaning, as translated by Ambassador Vix, had irrevocably altered the course of his existence. 18 Earth years ago, Ambassador Vix's resonant voice echoed within the cramped space, "Your grandfather, Jonathan Thorne, saved Emperor Rix's life during a diplomatic mission to Earth. In gratitude, the Emperor signed a binding succession pact. With the Emperor's recent passing and no direct heir, you are now legally entitled to the imperial throne and the hand of Queen Aella in marriage." The words hung in the air like a discordant melody. Daniel, still reeling from the initial shock of the three otherworldly beings who had materialized in his living room, felt a strange detachment, as if observing this bizarre scene from afar. His mother, Martha, stood frozen by the doorway, her face a mask of disbelief and worry. Beside him, his best friend, Mike, who had been in the middle of narrating a story, choked on his soda. The leader of this unlikely delegation, Ambassador Vix, was an imposing figure with skin that shimmered like polished lapis lazuli. The two companions, a hulking warrior clad in obsidian armor and a slender diplomat adorned with crystalline ornaments, completed the picture of alien grandeur that clashed so violently with the mundane reality of Daniel's home. This is absurd," Martha finally managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. "Daniel is just a boy. He can't possibly rule an empire." "The pact is ironclad," the crystalline diplomat interjected, his voice a melodic chime. "Queen Aella awaits aboard our ship in orbit. We must depart immediately." Daniel's mind raced, trying to reconcile the impossible reality with the memories of his grandfather, Jonathan. A man he barely remembered, Jonathan had disappeared when Daniel was only a child, leaving behind a series of cryptic letters hinting at a grand destiny, a lineage intertwined with the stars. These letters had been dismissed as the ramblings of a man lost to grief and sickness. Now, they seemed to be the only anchor to a truth so far-fetched it defied comprehension. He held up a hand, silencing the protests swirling around him. "I need a moment," he said, surprised by the steadiness of his voice. He retreated to his small bedroom, the walls adorned with posters of distant planets and starships, relics of a childhood fueled by science fiction dreams. As he hastily packed a bag, throwing in a few changes of clothes, his worn copy of Dune, and a photograph of his grandfather, Martha hovered in the doorway, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear, pride, and disbelief. "Danny, you can't seriously be considering this," she pleaded. He turned to her, his expression resolute. "Mom, remember all those times I just knew things about people? The lucky guesses that weren't really guesses?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of understanding dawning in them. "Grandpa's letters, they mentioned the Reader bloodline." Daniel nodded, a sense of purpose solidifying within him. I think this is what I was born for." He embraced her tightly, feeling her reluctant acceptance. "I'll be careful, Mom. I promise." The starship, the Celestial Voyager, was a symphony of alien engineering, a vessel of living metal and shimmering energy. As Daniel stepped aboard, escorted by Ambassador Vix, he felt a sense of awe mingled with trepidation. The ship's interior was a labyrinth of corridors bathed in soft, pulsating light, the air humming with the silent power of advanced technology. "Welcome aboard, Lord Thorne," Ambassador Vix said, his tone formal and respectful. "I trust your accommodations are to your satisfaction." Daniel nodded, trying to conceal his astonishment. "It's impressive. Indeed. Now, if you would follow me, Queen Aella awaits your arrival." The meeting with Queen Aella was an encounter unlike any Daniel could have imagined. She stood in a vast chamber of polished obsidian, her presence radiating power and authority. She was tall and regal, her skin a shade of deep azure, her eyes like distant stars. Her attire, a gown woven from starlight itself, accentuated her graceful curves. But it was the aura of barely contained anger and resentment that struck Daniel most profoundly. "So, this is the heir," she said, her voice cold and devoid of warmth. "A child from a primitive world, barely out of adolescence." Daniel straightened his spine, meeting her gaze without flinching. He activated his reader ability, focusing on her emotional state, and perceived the layers of hurt and loneliness beneath the carefully constructed facade of imperial dignity. "Your Majesty," he said, executing a bow that he hoped conveyed both respect and confidence, "I look forward to proving that appearances can be deceiving." Aella's perfectly sculpted eyebrows twitched slightly, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "The court will eat you alive, little earthling," she said, her voice laced with venom. "Then it's fortunate I've always had a healthy appetite," Daniel retorted, a hint of amusement in his voice. For a fleeting moment, he saw a flicker of something other than contempt in her expression, a spark of curiosity, perhaps even a grudging admiration. Then, the mask of imperial aloofness returned, and she turned away, her movements fluid and graceful. "Ambassador Vix will brief you on the intricacies of imperial protocol. Try not to embarrass yourself." The journey to the Imperial Palace, located on a sprawling artificial ring world orbiting a distant star, was a crash course in galactic politics. Ambassador Vix provided Daniel with a torrent of information about the major noble houses, the recent conflicts that had shaped the empire, and the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined the imperial court. Daniel listened attentively, absorbing the details with his keen intellect. But he also relied on his reader ability, perceiving the subtle dynamics between his escorts, the hidden agendas and personal biases that no briefing could capture. The ring world was a breathtaking spectacle, a ribbon of civilization stretching across the sky, its gleaming cities and verdant landscapes a testament to the Empire's technological prowess. As they approached the Imperial Palace, Daniel felt a sense of wonder mingled with apprehension. The palace was a sprawling complex of soaring spires and crystalline structures, its architecture a blend of ancient tradition and futuristic innovation. As they walked through the palace halls, Daniel noticed the curious glances and whispered comments of the courtiers who lined their path. He felt their emotions wash over him, curiosity, disdain, envy, ambition. Some of the younger noble ladies, he noted, regarded him with open interest, their intentions barely concealed beneath layers of courtly etiquette. Queen Aella swept ahead of their group, her movements radiating grace and power. "Your quarters have been prepared," she said, without turning to face him. "Try not to disappoint me at tomorrow's formal presentation." Daniel watched her go, already formulating his plans. She expected him to fail, to prove himself the naive child she believed him to be. Instead, he would show them all, exactly why his grandfather had chosen him for this destiny. He smiled to himself, feeling the complex web of relationships and desires swirling around him. The game had just begun, and Daniel Thorne, the boy from Earth, was ready to play. His new quarters were palatial, a stark contrast to his cramped apartment back home. Servants, alien beings with iridescent skin and delicate features, unpacked his meager belongings with meticulous care. Daniel stood at a vast viewport, gazing at the ring world's curve stretching into infinity, the stars glittering like diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth. A soft chime announced a visitor. A young woman entered, her skin a shade of light blue, her eyes bright and intelligent. She wore a simple but elegant court dress, her demeanor both respectful and confident. "Lord Thorne," she curtsied gracefully. "I am Lady Nera, assigned to assist your transition to court life." Daniel studied her with interest, his reader ability revealing her genuine curiosity, her carefully controlled attraction, and her unwavering professionalism. "Please, call me Daniel," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I have a feeling I'll need all the friends I can get here." Nera smiled, her expression softening. "That's unusually direct for court," she said, "but perhaps Earth customs are different." "Very," he replied, leaning forward slightly. "For instance, on Earth, when someone wants to assess a potential threat while also considering their personal interests, they usually try to be more subtle about it." Nera's eyes widened, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. That's not. Don't worry, he said, his smile widening. I appreciate honesty, even unintended honesty. Shall we discuss what I need to know for tomorrow's presentation? Over the next hour, Nera proved to be a valuable source of information, not just about court protocols but about the personalities he would encounter. She spoke of the major noble houses, their strengths and weaknesses, their alliances and rivalries. Daniel paid particular attention when she discussed Queen Aella. The Queen has ruled effectively as regent since Emperor Rix began his decline 3 years ago, Nera explained. Many believe she should continue ruling alone, marriage requirement or not. And what do you believe? Daniel asked, though he could already sense the answer in her emotional state. Nera chose her words carefully, but her emotions were clear. I believe that change isn't always unwelcome. Fresh perspectives can be valuable. Their eyes met, and Daniel allowed himself to project just enough warmth to make her blush deepen. Building allies would be crucial, and Lady Nera's position could prove invaluable. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Daniel memorized names, practiced ceremonial gestures, and was fitted for court attire that felt impossibly light yet radiated subtle power. He felt like an actor preparing for the most important role of his life. That night, standing alone in his new quarters, he finally allowed himself to feel the full weight of everything that had happened. His reader ability, which had always set him apart on Earth, made him different. Here, in this place of ancient powers and cosmic intrigue, it might just make him emperor. A message flashed on his room's holographic interface, displaying the schedule for tomorrow's presentation ceremony. As he read it, another message appeared, this one anonymous. The boy king should watch his step. Not everyone welcomes earthborn upstarts. Daniel smiled, a glint of steel in his eyes. Let them plot. Every scheme, every emotion, every hidden desire was a thread he could read and weave into his own advantage. They thought him a naive child. He would show them what a reader could do. He looked out at the starfield beyond his window, thinking of Queen Aella, her barely concealed contempt. She was the key to everything, proud, powerful, and far more vulnerable than she knew. The court might be a maze of deadly intrigue, but Daniel had always been good at reading between the lines. The morning of the presentation arrived with controlled chaos. Servants bustled about, attending to every detail of Daniel's appearance. He adjusted his formal attire, a masterpiece of crystalline threads and dark material that shifted colors like oil on water. As he prepared, his reader ability picked up approaching emotions, a complex mix of curiosity and unmistakable desire. Lady Maria, daughter of House Vexian, sauntered into his chambers without announcement, her silver-blue skin seeming to glow in the soft light. Her court dress left little to the imagination, its design both alluring and provocative. I thought our new heir might appreciate a personal welcome, she purred, moving closer than protocol would allow. Her emotional signature blazed with intention, ambition, attraction, and cold calculation all twined together. Daniel smiled, reading every layer of her approach. How thoughtful, he said, his voice smooth and noncommittal. Though I suspect Queen Aella wouldn't approve of such informal greetings. Maria traced a finger along his collar, her eyes glittering. The Queen doesn't control everything, she whispered, despite what she believes. Before Daniel could respond, Lady Nera entered, stopping short at the scene. Her aura flashed with jealousy before she quickly composed herself. Lord Thorne, she said, her voice formal, the ceremony begins in 20 minutes. Thank you, Nera, he said, stepping smoothly away from Maria, noting how both women's emotions shifted at his subtle show of preference for formality. Shall we proceed? The great hall of the imperial palace defied description. Thousands of nobles from across the galaxy filled the vast space, their varied forms and colors creating a living tapestry of alien life. Daniel felt their mixed emotions wash over him, curiosity, disdain, interest, calculation. It was a sensory overload, but he focused his reader ability, filtering out the noise and focusing on the key players. Queen Aella sat on the crystal throne, her beauty even more striking in full imperial regalia. Her emotional landscape was carefully controlled, but Daniel caught flickers of annoyance as she noticed several young noblewomen eyeing him with obvious interest. The ceremony proceeded according to ancient protocol, each ritual steeped in tradition and symbolism. Daniel executed each step with precision, his movements graceful and confident. He could feel Aella's satisfaction at seeing him in this subservient position, along with the schadenfreude of various observers who hoped he would falter. However, when it came time for him to address the court, Daniel surprised everyone. He rose to his full height, projecting an aura of natural authority that silenced the murmurs and drew all eyes to him. "My honored subjects," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. "I stand before you not just as heir to the throne, but as a bridge between worlds." He spoke of his humble origins on Earth, of the values of justice, compassion, and innovation that he hoped to bring to the Empire. He acknowledged the Empire's glorious past but emphasized the need for progress and reform. His speech was carefully crafted to honor tradition while promising positive change. To his surprise, his words were met with genuine approval. He could read the shift in the minds of the assembled nobles, from dismissal to genuine interest, particularly among the younger generation. Even Queen Aella seemed impressed, her expression softening slightly. Later, at the celebration feast, Daniel found himself navigating a delicate dance of social interactions. Lady Kira of House Zenar practically draped herself across him during a discussion of trade policies, while Princess Astra of the Nebula Kingdoms made her interest known through increasingly suggestive metaphors about joining their houses. Through it all, Daniel maintained perfect composure, neither encouraging nor completely rejecting their advances. His reader ability allowed him to play each interaction with precision, showing enough interest to gain allies but never enough to make promises he couldn't keep. He caught Queen Aella watching these exchanges, her emotions becoming increasingly complex. There was annoyance, yes, but also curiosity. She clearly hadn't expected him to handle the court's sexual politics with such sophistication. The evening's real challenge came during trade negotiations between houses Vexian and Zenar. What started as a minor dispute over shipping routes quickly escalated into barely veiled threats of economic warfare. Daniel could sense the deeper emotional currents at play, the underlying resentments and power struggles that fueled the conflict. Seizing the opportunity to demonstrate his leadership skills, Daniel stepped in, proposing a solution that gave both houses what they truly desired while appearing to favor neither. His plan involved the creation of a neutral trade zone, overseen by a joint commission, that would ensure fair access to resources and prevent future conflicts. The assembled nobles were stunned into silence, then erupted into a chorus of shocked approval. Even Queen Aella allowed herself a brief flash of reluctant admiration. Daniel had not only resolved a potentially devastating conflict but had also demonstrated his intelligence, diplomacy, and strategic thinking. As the celebration wound down, Daniel retired to his chambers, well aware of at least 3 different noble ladies who had coincidentally lost their way and ended up near his door. Their disappointment was palpable when he firmly closed his doors. Alone in his chambers, he reviewed the events of the day, analyzing each interaction, each subtle gesture, each fleeting emotion. He was learning the game of courtly intrigue, mastering the art of manipulation and persuasion. But he knew that he needed more than just social skills to survive in this treacherous environment. He needed allies, loyal and trustworthy individuals who could provide him with information, guidance, and support. He thought of Lady Nera, her genuine kindness and unwavering professionalism. He decided to seek her out, to deepen their alliance and confide in her his plans for the future. As he prepared for bed, another message flashed on his holographic interface. This one was anonymous, but the tone was unmistakable. "You may have impressed the court today, Earthling, but you have made powerful enemies. Beware of those who offer you friendship. Not all are what they seem." Daniel smiled, unfazed by the threat. He knew that he was walking a dangerous path, but he was determined to succeed. He had a destiny to fulfill, an empire to lead, and a queen to win over. And he wouldn't let anyone stand in his way. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel found himself immersed in the endless responsibilities of his new position. He attended council meetings, reviewed trade agreements, and oversaw military exercises. He was learning the intricacies of galactic governance, but he felt like he was constantly being tested, his every move scrutinized by the watchful eyes of the imperial court. One of his most formidable adversaries was General Forlag, the head of the Imperial Guard. A towering figure with a stern demeanor and a reputation for unwavering loyalty to the Empire, Forlag was skeptical of Daniel's leadership, viewing him as an inexperienced upstart who didn't understand the complexities of galactic security. Forlag made his displeasure known through subtle acts of defiance, questioning Daniel's decisions, delaying his orders, and generally making his life as difficult as possible. Daniel knew that he needed to win Forlag over if he hoped to gain the respect of the military and solidify his control over the Empire. One day, Forlag approached Daniel with a proposition. "Lord Thorn," he said, his voice gruff, "I believe it is time for you to demonstrate your strategic capabilities. I have designed a simulated crisis scenario that will test your ability to command the Imperial fleet and defend the Empire against a hypothetical enemy invasion." Daniel recognized the challenge for what it was, a trap. Forlag was setting him up to fail, hoping to expose his inexperience and undermine his authority. But Daniel couldn't refuse the challenge without appearing weak and insecure. "Very well, General," he said, his expression unwavering. "I accept your challenge. When does the simulation begin?" Forlag smiled, a hint of triumph in his eyes. "Tomorrow at dawn, Lord Thorn. I suggest you prepare yourself. This will not be easy." Daniel knew that he needed help if he hoped to succeed in Forlag's simulation. He turned to Zara, a young tech prodigy who had recently joined his staff. Zara was a brilliant programmer and strategist, with a knack for anticipating enemy tactics and devising innovative solutions. "Zara," Daniel said, "I need your help. General Forlag has challenged me to a simulated crisis scenario, and I believe he's trying to set me up to fail." Zara nodded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Tell me everything, Lord Thorn. I'll help you turn the tables on him." Together, Daniel and Zara spent hours analyzing the simulation parameters, studying Forlag's past strategies, and developing a counter-strategy that would exploit his weaknesses. Zara created a series of complex algorithms that would allow Daniel to predict the enemy's movements, anticipate their attacks, and coordinate the Imperial fleet with maximum efficiency. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the Imperial War Room, where Forlag and his staff were already waiting. The room was filled with holographic displays, showing the simulated battlefield, the positions of the Imperial fleet, and the approaching enemy forces. Forlag nodded curtly to Daniel. "Are you ready, Lord Thorn?" Daniel took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I am, General." "Let the simulation begin." The simulation began, and the enemy forces launched a massive assault on the Empire's outer defenses. Forlag watched with a smug expression as Daniel struggled to respond to the initial attacks. But Daniel remained calm, relying on Zara's algorithms and his own intuition to anticipate the enemy's next move. He ordered the Imperial fleet to reposition, creating a series of defensive lines that would funnel the enemy forces into a series of carefully planned ambushes. He used his reader ability to anticipate the enemy commander's emotional state, predicting his decision-making process and exploiting his vulnerabilities. To Forlag's astonishment, Daniel's strategy began to work. The enemy forces were caught in a series of devastating traps, their ships destroyed or disabled. The Imperial fleet, under Daniel's command, fought with precision and coordination, inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy. As the simulation progressed, Forlag's smug expression turned to disbelief. He had underestimated Daniel's strategic capabilities, his ability to think outside the box, and his unwavering determination to succeed. In the end, Daniel led the Imperial fleet to a decisive victory, crushing the enemy invasion and saving the Empire from destruction. The war room erupted into cheers as the simulation concluded, the holographic displays showing the shattered remains of the enemy fleet. Forlag approached Daniel, his expression a mixture of respect and grudging admiration. "Lord Thorn," he said, his voice sincere, "I must admit, I underestimated you. You have proven yourself to be a capable commander and a worthy heir to the throne." Daniel smiled, accepting Forlag's praise with grace and humility. "Thank you, General," he said. "But the victory was not mine alone. Zara's contributions were invaluable." He gestured to Zara, who blushed slightly at the attention. Forlag nodded to her, acknowledging her role in the victory. From that day forward, Forlag became one of Daniel's most loyal supporters, offering him his unwavering counsel and his unwavering commitment to the defense of the Empire. Daniel had proven himself to Forlag, not through brute force or empty rhetoric, but through intelligence, strategy, and the ability to inspire those around him. With General Forlag now a staunch ally, Daniel turned his attention to the delicate matter of Queen Aella. Despite their shared position as rulers of the Empire, a palpable tension existed between them. Aella, still grieving the loss of Emperor Rix and resentful of Daniel's sudden arrival, often challenged his authority and undermined his decisions. One day, a diplomatic crisis erupted with the neighboring star system of Xylos. Aella, acting without consulting Daniel, issued a series of demands to Xylos that were considered unreasonable and provocative, threatening to escalate the situation into a full-scale war. Ambassador Vix, concerned about Aella's rash actions, approached Daniel with a plea for intervention. "Lord Thorn," he said, his voice urgent, "Queen Aella's demands are unacceptable to Xylos. They are on the brink of severing diplomatic ties, and we risk plunging the Empire into a costly and unnecessary war." Daniel knew that he had to act quickly to defuse the situation. He decided to confront Aella directly, hoping to reason with her and persuade her to reconsider her demands. He found her in her private chambers, gazing out at the starfield beyond the palace windows. She turned to face him, her expression cold and distant. "What do you want, Daniel?" she said, her voice laced with impatience. "I want to understand why you issued those demands to Xylos," Daniel replied, his voice calm and measured. "They are unreasonable and dangerous, and they risk plunging the Empire into war." Aella's eyes flashed with anger. "Xylos has been encroaching on our territory for years," she said. "They have been exploiting our resources and undermining our authority. I will not tolerate their insolence any longer." Daniel recognized the emotions beneath Aella's anger, fear, frustration, and a deep-seated desire to protect the Empire. He knew that she was acting out of a sense of loyalty and duty, but her methods were misguided. "I understand your concerns, Aella," Daniel said, "but war is not the answer. It is a costly and destructive solution that will only bring more suffering to both sides. We must find a peaceful resolution to this conflict." Aella scoffed. "Peaceful resolution? Xylos will never agree to negotiate. They will only continue to exploit us until we are weak and defenseless." Daniel stepped closer to Aella, his gaze unwavering. "I believe they will negotiate," he said. "But we must approach them with respect and understanding. We must offer them a solution that addresses their concerns and satisfies their needs." Aella hesitated, her expression softening slightly. "What do you propose?" Daniel outlined his plan, a series of diplomatic initiatives that would address Xylos's grievances, offer them economic incentives, and establish a framework for peaceful cooperation. He emphasized the importance of compromise, mutual respect, and open communication. Aella listened attentively, her initial resistance gradually fading away. She recognized the wisdom in Daniel's plan, the potential for a peaceful resolution that would benefit both the Empire and Xylos. "Your plan is unconventional," she said, her voice thoughtful. "But it might just work." Daniel smiled. "I believe it will, Aella. But I need your support. I need you to trust me and give me the authority to negotiate with Xylos on behalf of the Empire. Aella paused, her eyes searching Daniel's. She saw in him a genuine desire for peace, a willingness to listen and learn, and a strength of character that she had initially dismissed. Very well, Daniel, she said, her voice firm. I will give you my support. Negotiate with Xylos. Show me that you can bring peace to the Empire without resorting to war. With Aella's blessing, Daniel embarked on a delicate diplomatic mission to Xylos. He met with their leaders, listened to their concerns, and offered them a series of concessions that addressed their grievances. He established a new trade agreement that benefited both sides, resolved the territorial disputes, and forged a lasting peace between the Empire and Xylos. When Daniel returned to the imperial palace, he was greeted as a hero. The court erupted into cheers, celebrating his diplomatic triumph and his ability to avert a costly war. Aella approached Daniel, her expression filled with gratitude and respect. You have exceeded my expectations, Daniel, she said, her voice sincere. You have brought peace to the Empire, and you have earned my trust. She reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his body. From now on, she said, we will rule this empire together, as partners, as equals. Daniel smiled, his heart swelling with joy. He had not only won Aella's trust but had also forged a bond of respect and affection that would shape the future of the empire. Having established peace with Xylos and gained Queen Aella's trust, Daniel turned his attention to the internal problems plaguing the empire. He had witnessed firsthand the corruption, inequality, and injustice that existed within the imperial system, and he was determined to bring about meaningful change. He began by implementing a series of reforms designed to address the root causes of these problems. He established an independent commission to investigate corruption within the government, crack down on illegal trade practices, and created programs to promote education and economic opportunity for the underprivileged. These reforms were met with resistance from certain factions within the imperial court, particularly from Lord Valerius, a cunning and ambitious noble who had long benefited from the empire's corrupt system. Valerius saw Daniel's reforms as a threat to his power and influence, and he began to plot against him. Valerius gathered a group of like-minded nobles, those who were unwilling to relinquish their wealth and privilege, and formed a secret alliance to undermine Daniel's reforms. They spread rumors, sowed discord, and attempted to sabotage Daniel's efforts at every turn. Daniel, however, was aware of Valerius's treachery. His reader ability allowed him to perceive the hidden agendas and ulterior motives of those around him. He knew that he had to act decisively to neutralize Valerius's threat before it could destabilize the empire. He confided in Aella, sharing his concerns about Valerius and his alliance. Aella, now fully supportive of Daniel's reforms, agreed to help him expose Valerius and bring him to justice. Together, Daniel and Aella devised a plan to lure Valerius into a trap. They organized a grand celebration, inviting all the nobles of the empire to attend. During the celebration, Daniel publicly announced a new initiative that would strip Valerius and his allies of their ill-gotten gains and redistribute the wealth to the people. Valerius, enraged by Daniel's announcement, lost his composure and openly denounced him, revealing his treasonous intentions in front of the entire court. Aella, acting swiftly, ordered the imperial guard to arrest Valerius and his accomplices. With Valerius and his alliance neutralized, Daniel was free to continue his reforms without obstruction. He implemented new laws to protect the rights of the common citizens, established fair trade practices, and promoted transparency and accountability in the government. Under Daniel's leadership, the empire began to flourish. Corruption decreased, inequality diminished, and the quality of life for the average citizen improved significantly. The empire became a beacon of hope and prosperity, a model for other star systems to emulate. Daniel and Aella ruled the empire together, their partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and affection. They faced many challenges, but they always overcame them, united in their commitment to building a better future for the empire. Years passed, and Daniel and Ayala's love for each other deepened. They married, solidifying their bond and securing the future of the imperial dynasty. They had children, heirs to the throne who would carry on their legacy of peace, justice, and prosperity. As Daniel looked out at the vast expanse of the galaxy, he felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. He had come a long way from the small apartment on Earth, from the ordinary life he had once known. He had become an emperor, a leader, and a force for good in the galaxy. He knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, that there would always be challenges to overcome and battles to fight. But he was confident that, with Ayala by his side, he could face any obstacle and create a better future for the Empire and for all the sentient beings who called it home. The seeds of change had been planted, and Daniel was determined to nurture them, to ensure that they blossomed into a galaxy of peace, justice, and prosperity for generations to come.